developed in New York really was a little bit of a fashion statement in that Richard Hell wasn't unaware that his shirt was ripped when he went on stage, but it also, some of the safety pins and the stapled cuffs and things like that were more of a necessity of people actually trying to hold their clothes together.
I mean, I had heard that some girlfriend ripped up his clothes and that he just sort of stapled them together to get out of the house that night. And Malcolm McLaren was in town. Richard kind of walked in wearing these clothes safety pinned together, and Malcolm was totally taken by that idea of like anti-fashion, like not making the clothes like perfectly well made, but in fact taking them and cutting them apart and just sort of putting them back together haphazardly and, you know, kind of mixed up a little bit.
The original punk look that Malcolm brought from New York and sort of took a bit of this and a bit of that was the safety pins, the ripped clothes, the this and that, and he stylized that. He not mass-produced it, but he produced it so you could go into his shop and buy like a shirt that already had safety.
And the punk scene started growing bigger and bigger and bigger in the UK, and more people had spiky hairdos.
Even though Richard Hell gets the credit for it, the spiky-haired look came from England, from the Pistols and the Pistols fans.
Like in New York, there was a couple of people maybe, you know, in kind of a grungy look, but they didn't take the fashion to that extent. I mean, they might put safety pins to hold some of their clothes together.
Safety pins. As far as I know, Johnny Rotten was the first person to do that. He put safety pins himself, so he totally gets the credit for that, as far as I know.
The punk look, I think a whole lot of it came from John.
You know, the early Johnny Rotten photo we always saw was his homemade T-shirt with "I hate" with a Pink Floyd shirt.
I don't have any heroes. They're all useless.
From day one, he wrote slogans. He had a Paul Cook had a horrible lime green Pink Floyd T-shirt, which John borrowed and promptly wrote, "I hate."
I think the reason this caught on was it was cheap. To go get a punk look, you didn't have to buy a lot of expensive gear.
We didn't have the money to buy those clothes at From Granny Takes a Trip, really.
That's true.
So we were in the thrift shops looking for something similar or weirder or something like that.
So I started playing around with swastikas, and I created these fluorescent swastikas. And this is 1972. And of course, the band that was around at the time that was cool, that could use them, were the New York Dolls. I thought it was perfect. I thought it was a perfect sample of something that was too much, too fast.
74, 75, 76, I mean, the place to be was, you know, the King's Road.
Part of it, but I think that he gave it the oxygen of publicity. He brought it into life, I mean, through fashion, through the shop on the King's Road, and through to his work with Vivian and whatever. Yeah, I think that many will argue, many will sit on the fence about that, but he certainly shook it up, and he certainly provided the tools for lots of people to carve out their own definitions of punk.
Back in the late 70s, when there was that whole culture of people like putting razor blades in their jackets and doing the slam dancing thing and putting safety pins in their ears, to where now it's like all this sterile, everybody's getting their bell bar, you know, tongue ring and whatnot, and eyeball ring and lip ring and chin ring and skull implants and stuff, and it's just sort of like a progression of that, but it's a marketable progression where that was like the start and it came out of something. This is just commerce. Modern day ideal of, you know, punk and whatnot and the fashion of it, and we're being hardcore, we're being honest with ourselves, this is a true expression of ourselves, and then they see someone who isn't dressed like them, they're like, free your mind, think like us. It's kind of funny because it's just a mirror image of the same thing, and people walking around in the preppy culture sitting there, oh, how dare you wear that? And people in the punk culture, oh, how dare you come in here with that? It's the exact same thing. Back in its early days, it wasn't about that. What made it about that is the whole market.